Anakin Skywalker was not necessary for the success of Operation Nightfall. The Jedi were going to be destroyed by Sidious regardless, and Anakin had no need to march through the halls of his former home, murdering his brothers and sisters. Or at least that's how it appears on the surface, when in reality when we look at Anakin in Operation Nightfall, it is one of the darkest knighting ceremonies for a Sith Lord that we have ever seen. This is Anakin's first mission as Vader, storming the Jedi Temple, and literally and figuratively liberating himself from their teachings and their hubris. Anakin and the 501st Legion cleared out the entire temple, and the numbers of Jedi deaths on Coruscant could be in the hundreds. But upon the review of the Jedi Temple attack, Lord Vader's involvement was not necessary to the mission whatsoever. The clones could have handled Operation Nightfall themselves. They could have left Vader with enough free time to move swiftly around the galaxy at Palpatine's orders. But Palpatine didn't want that. Palpatine needed Vader to be a part of this. He needed to be baptized in the blood of the Jedi, to become something more, something greater. One thing that we know that's established a lot is that the clone troopers know how to kill Jedi quickly. This is something that we saw happen in Clone Wars Season 2 Brain Invaders, where worm-infested troopers managed to trap Barriss Offee and capture her, proving that if there was one thing that the clones knew how to do, it would be to take down Jedi. This of course is their way of saying that on the front lines, the clones are constantly observing what the Jedi generals are up to. They know the strengths of a Jedi, they've seen them firsthand when they were led to victory, but they have also seen the weakness of the Jedi. The Clone Wars put the Grand Army of the Republic and the Jedi in many settings for battle, and no two conflicts were the same. The clones often found themselves fighting alongside Jedi in all kinds of dynamic situations. Most of the time the Jedi would overcome their enemy, but of course, there were times when the clone watched their Jedi commanders and generals get gunned down, and they would take note of that subconsciously. The Brain Invaders episode is incredibly important. It informs us that when the clones are compromised, they have an entire memory storage of how the Jedi work. They have a profile mentally ingrained on how to kill them, and they pull from these memories and create a tactical plan around it. A common misconception is the clones were not turned into droids like mindlessly firing upon the nearest Jedi. Contrary to many sources and legends, they retained their minds and canon, their memories, and their personalities, just with new orders that compelled their brain to act. There are many clones which embraced this change, disliking the Jedi, and others like Rex, who had a much harder time resisting the inhibitor compulsion, but at that point, they retain all of their intelligence and their tactical wit, which meant that they were all fully capable of taking down Jedi. We saw this happen across the galaxy, with the clones each knowing the exact way to fire upon the Jedi, from what angles. The most widely used method that we see, of course, is ambush, surrounding the Jedi on all sides in a large but a tight circle, firing at them continuously. The only Jedi this method did not work on was Sarisu practitioners, and Ahsoka Tano thanks to Anakin. But for the vast majority of Jedi, this was the clones' method. The Jedi deflect the blasters for a decent amount of time before eventually making a small mistake, succumbing to the onslaught. This method was genius, continuously firing upon the target from all angles simultaneously. This negated the Jedi's ability to break long enough to focus on the Force. We saw even miniature versions of this specific plan used in Operation Nightfall. We see death squads of 4 to 5 troopers who would detach and surround specific Jedi in order to gun them down from all angles. But would this be enough to conquer the Jedi Temple without Lord Vader? Without the power of a Sith Lord leading them, all it would really take for the clones is just a little more ingenuity. The whole advantage of the temple attack was that the Jedi were caught completely off guard. They were confused, they were afraid, and this impacted their ability to rely on the Force. The clones were able to quickly overwhelm them, but there were a few Jedi that had to be killed by Anakin in order for the operation to go smoothly. The Jedi that Anakin targeted were Shaak Ti and Sindralig, but Vader was also the one that got them inside the gate. The first person that Vader killed was the gatekeeper of the Jedi Temple. This got the 501st in without any alarm being set off. But could the clones have done this themselves? Well, the answer is probably yes. The gatekeeper was just as confused and surprised as everyone else. The only thing the Jedi was concerned about was what happened to Mace Windu and the other Jedi. It would likely just be as easy for the clones to shoot him in the back with no problem. In fact, the clones would likely be able to take care of just about anyone in the temple without much of a problem. The only real issue were the aforementioned 2 targets, Shaak Ti and Sindralig. The Temple Guards would also likely prove to be a challenge, but by this point, their ranks were significantly thinned because of the Grand Inquisitor, who betrayed most of his Temple Guard brethren. And this is why, even if the Temple Guards stalemated the clones, I believe the Grand Inquisitor would clean the rest of them up. Surprisingly, Shaak Ti may or may not even be a real problem either. The reason Vader targeted Shaak Ti was because she was the last Jedi Council member left on Coruscant, which made her a legitimate threat. One of the primary reasons for this was because of her excellent battlefield senses. She was even known for rallying troops quickly, creating cohesive formations. She demonstrated her tactical ability during the Separatist attack of Kamino, where she pulled together her troopers in a defensive line and held key areas of the facility against the droid onslaught. Shaak Ti was good, but there was one truth in the Clone Wars, and that was that Anakin was better. Vader targeted her first. Vader knew that if she could get to the troopers and the other Jedi, that they could mount a formidable defense. But he found her in deep meditation, looking off so far into the Force that the only thing present about her was her natural Togrutan racial ability of being able to sense the emotions of the people around her with her montrals. She knew it was Anakin based off of his troubled emotions, and made no move to attack him, simply asking him a question before he slew her. We did a video some time back about why none of the Jedi were able to sense Anakin during Order 66, or at least sense that he had fallen to the dark side. In that video, we explained a theory that Shaak Ti wasn't actually sensing Anakin in the Force, but simply with her montrals, which wouldn't have picked up the dark side in him. If this theory is correct, then Shaak Ti wouldn't be able to sense the presences of the clones at all. We talked before about how hardly any of the Jedi sensed Order 66, or sensed that the clones were betraying them because the clones had no malice in what they did in murdering the Jedi. Once the chips were activated, the clones were just following orders. Simple, cold, hard logic. No emotion, nothing to sense. Some extremely perceptive Jedi were able to sense that they themselves were in danger, but not many did, not even Obi-Wan. And because of this, it's possible that the clones would be able to enter the meditation chamber and to gun down the Jedi Master without her sensing them at all. Now that's two major targets down, but what about the Jedi Battle Master Sin Drallig? This is a big problem without Vader. Drallig is a talented swordsman, and even gave Vader a decent challenge in Nightfall. Sin Drallig and the Temple Guards mounted a powerful defense against the clone attack in the proper upper levels of the temple, here where they planned to make a stand with a group of younglings. It was said that wave after wave of clone troopers were repelled by the blade, and that the clones needed to exercise some of the things that they knew best about the Jedi. Sonic grenades, explosives. The troopers knew that all of this could be used against the Temple Guards, but not Sin Drallig. Something more powerful was needed. In canon, it is known that Sin Drallig fought alongside two very young Padawans, both of whom fell before Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. One of the most useful techniques to employ against a Jedi is to put someone they care about in danger. According to the Jedi-killing droid HK-47, a droid built by Revan, he recommends this exact plan, saying that this is the best tactic to use on a seasoned Jedi. Switching your method of fire to a nearby, more helpless target is advised. The clones fire upon Padawans, keeping their guns off of Drallig until he threw himself in harm's way trying to protect them. It's now that the clones would need to turn their blasters on the Jedi Master. It may take a bit longer, but it is doable, and the clones have killed powerful Jedi before. It's easy to say that while Vader made Operation Nightfall quicker and smoother, he wasn't necessary. The 501st Legion was fully capable of carrying out the Temple Purge personally, so why was Vader sent? The rise of the Empire had to happen quickly, and Palpatine had to send him somewhere more important, you would think. Well, actually at this moment, nothing was more important than taking the Jedi down first. While there were many things to see to at one moment, Palpatine sure wanted Vader there for assurance, but there are greater reasons behind it. This is in fact the weakest. The primary reason being youngling insurance. The younglings were the targets of the temple attack. We noticed that Anakin went through the temple taking care of key targets all along his way to the High Council chambers, knowing that that is where the younglings were. Sidious ordered Vader to kill the future. The next generation was the threat. The old had lost the battle long ago, but it were these younglings that could become a different form of Jedi, a more troublesome form of Jedi. And this was the test for Anakin. Sidious is a wise master after all, and despite Anakin betraying Windu and pledging himself to the Sith cause, Palpatine needed to know that his apprentice was in it for real. To attack his home at the Jedi Temple was more symbolic than anything. He became its invader, and by his own hand, Anakin would raise the temple that he grew up and cast it down, casting down the life of Anakin Skywalker. Each Jedi he murdered would be a testament to how committed he was to the Sith, how he was truly worthy of the knowledge of the dark side that Sidious had. Anakin took little pleasure in the destruction of the temple. He did it for Padme, something that he was still deeply upset by later and crying over on Mustafar. To be sure, Vader's involvement was not needed or exactly necessary, but it was needed for his journey into Sithhood, to ascend to the Empire, and that is why it is called Operation Nightfall. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, subscribing, commenting, and liking, and as always, may the Force be with you.